Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Advanced Combat Logistics, written by Farmwhich4275. I stood at my command post, on the bridge of the largest warship we had at our disposal. My tactical display showed me we had over 600 ships, most of which were combat vessels and a few logistics carriers. But most of all, this was the first real combat operation involving our first ever carrier-class warship. A concept we blatantly stole from the Terrans, of course. We never even hid it from them. We just outright took it, and they were just fine with it. And so were we. We were here to meet up with them. Humans, enigmas of the galaxies, freaks of nature with no rules when it comes to, well, almost anything. Now they were our allies in one of the riskiest and most dangerous operations we were ever attempting. Half of our Empire's military strength was gathered here, and my hope was that we could accomplish our mission before the enemy noticed our borders were unprotected. One singular, deep, decisive strike against the enemy forces, wiping out their admiralty and destroying their ships in a decisive surprise attack. Rogue generals, rogue admirals, and hopefully a few corrupted politicians responsible for the mess that's been going on for the last decade will come to a swift end. Assuming my intel sources are right, anyway. But one way or another, this will end before it begins. I just need the humans to work their magic, hopefully. All ships report optimal conditions, Admiral. All ships information are requested. Ping reports 3 minutes out, the ship's captain said.
Perfect. Now everyone, make sure you follow the protocols that we spoke about. Manual control of the turrets and weapons only, besides the point defense. Set shields double front and reactors to idle. I barked into the comms link. It took a moment for my orders to carry through, and then looked around at the fleet composition. 200 ships from the Ilarian Confederacy, the so-called Space Penguins, as the humans called them. Sleek ships that had capabilities to fight underwater and in atmosphere for an extended period, but were weak in ship-to-ship combat. Protecting them were ships from my people, the Kataskani Imperium. Too large and unable to go atmospheric, but capable of facing almost anything spaceborne head-on. Scattered amongst them were 50 or so ships from humanity's newly minted vassals, the Serenai Confederacy, bearing its largest ships in coalition fleet with heavier firepower than we needed. Everything was in place. Ping detected, sir. Fleet incoming. Terran signatures. I count 70 of them, my ensign said. I raised a brow. 70? That's a lot more than I expected.
Maybe the humans are joining us in the battle, the captain mused.
Unlikely. The Terrans have no skin in the game and likely don't want the blood on their hands. Likely they won't be joining the fight, I replied.
If they aren't fighting, then what are we waiting here for? The captain asked, confused.
Patience, Captain, patience. Here they come,
I barked, noting the space-time distortions building in front of the fleet. Moments later, they warped in. Terran industrial cargo freighters, mobile dry docks, and heavy logistics cruisers. A lot more than I was expecting. They all appeared in perfect synchronization in front of the fleet, and before we could respond, they were turning around with practiced precision. Each one could hold 50 ships easily, with room to spare. We didn't need this many. Within seconds, I gave the order to mobilize and dock up with any available slot. The fleet reluctantly obeyed orders, and each ship in the fleet latched on and locked in. I was about to make history by militarizing humanity's logistics network. My own ship carefully wandered into one of the dry docks, and I saw firsthand how their systems worked. Gigantic mechanical claws reached down from the sides to grab the ship's hull with electromagnetic locks, effectively freezing the ship into dry dock fields of influence. Seconds after we were hauled into space secured with the dock, I saw cables and pipes, among so many other things extending from the automated docking arms and extensions down to the ship. Whatever they could get a hold of, they did, plugging themselves into sockets or removing access panels between armor layers to seize access to the ship's systems. The lights dimmed for a few moments, then the ship's reactor slowed to idle state. We came to rest, and the lights returned. I checked systems while I could and noted how power output was reaching petawatt levels. Shields were down but angled properly, which is exactly what I asked for, exactly what I needed. I quickly logged in to their system computers and checked with them, handing over the navigation data and jump coordinates. Hopefully, they'll be able to make good use of it. India Golf 903 checking in, confirming jump codes and operation security check. Over. A voice in the comm yelled,
Copy India Golf 903, this is Refcon 27, call sign Breacher. Code 28 Alpha 275. How copy?
I replied. All clear. Estimates 2 minutes to fleet readiness. We're having some hardware compat issues with the new ships. Give us a minute. The radio replied. I nodded in response. Now I see where this is going, the captain said.
Oh, do you? Then explain it, I replied.
You know of these ship-shipping ships and their ability to amplify jump range. You intend to use this ability along with precise jump coordinates to jump directly into the enemy fleet for a massive surprise attack. Then use the momentum to force the Kabaki to surrender, don't you? He said.
You have the first part right, but not the second. No, I have something better in mind, something that'll hit harder and result in less casualties if it works, I replied.
And if it doesn't work? He asked.
Then the Terrans will witness what the Kabaki are capable of, and our sacrifice will result in an all-out war with the Terran Federation. The Terrans are here not as facilitators, but as witnesses. Don't tell them that, though. They will interfere. This is a problem that goes deep, and I have to hit it just right to fix it properly. Everyone knows their targets. We have to hit them when hard and fast and leave no survivors. This is the heart of the current Admiralty, and contains the worst scumbags in the Empire. If the ships I asked for are destroyed, it won't matter if we survive the battle or not. We will have done our jobs, I said.
Then this is effectively a suicide mission, the captain said with a grave expression.
If you fight hard and hit harder, it won't need to be. We can rout them if we are fast and precise, and we will all know what exactly we need to hit. If my intel is still good, which it should be. This is for a far greater purpose than you can imagine, Igor. This has to go well, even if we die. The cold calculus of war as humanity once coined it. Some die here, some can live there. Sadly, that is what comes down to, I replied.
Jump drives charged, coordinates locked, grav lancers primed. 2, 1, ignition, the radio said. Before I could say anything, the fabric of reality disintegrated and focused itself to a singularity in front of us. I felt my soul rip itself away from my body, and my brains going to my feet for the tiniest split of a split microsecond. Then it all stopped, and we were in the system, all of us, 600 warships in the Coalition fleet, along with 70 human ships that carried us in. I double-checked my coordinates, and we were exactly where I asked. I ran some shortwave scans. The ships I was targeting were there.
Our time is now. All ships configure as follows. Shields full double front. All weapons to manual, with point defenses are automatic, with 200 unit range. Set engines for full reverse. Thrust and brace yourselves for the tide of your lives. Targeting data is shared. Focus all your fire exclusively on the disintegrating targets. If we do this fast, we will make it out alive and unscathed, I barked.
I'm going to be from the console. Every ship had acknowledged my order.
Okay, humans, do your thing, I barked.
A few seconds passed. Nothing. We stayed docked. What's going on? Did they hear me talk? No. Impossible. It was only maybe 15 seconds, but it felt like an eternity, like they were considering an unknown variable of some kind. They knew something was off, but couldn't think what. Time was running out, though. I had to rush it before Reese was spotted.
Please, I barked.
I was forced backwards into my chair as the ship's reactors, engines, and everything else brought to life. A deflection field surrounded us, and we were catapulted forward at incredible speed. Our engines throttled to full reverse, making the ride just that heavier as we charged through the space towards the enemy fleet. My plan was working. How was it working? We were closing distance at a perfect angle and the perfect speed, and within moments we were in the midst of a massive warship fleet. We came to a fast halt as the engines roared away, and we stopped.
Open fire!
I yelled. Our fleet effectively appeared out of nowhere within the enemy fleet formation with a speed that had no way to counteract, and we managed to confuse them enough to the point they were taken fully by surprise. All of our ships opened fire at once, and within seconds of the order, all the 10 ships I had targeted specifically were lit up like a celebratory explosives display, 3 of which bolted almost immediately, having no shields active at the time. 3 massive explosions erupted in short order. 2 more followed shortly thereafter. Then, with one fell swoop, half the Kabaki's military command structure, At least the ones I was after were dead, and their custom-built flagships along with them.
"Maintain fire!"
I bellowed through the radio.
"These criminals must face justice. Do not stop your attacks until every last primary target is melted to slag."
The battle continued, and as another ship faltered and exploded, the enemy finally began to retaliate. The casualty reports started flooding in, and we started losing ships, but the enemy wasn't able to do much about our assault. My own ship aimed its main cannons at Kubaki Admiral Durak's flagship and unleashed a heavy battery straight into its engines. It must have blasted through the reactors, as the ship instantly went nova. We were unfortunately caught in the detonation, being basically in spitting distance, and our ships took too much impact, and they shut down. One of the starboard generators also appeared to short out and exploded too. 7 of 10 ships. Now what was left was Kulak, Polak, and Sunak. Kulak was now taking heavy fire, and he would be gone soon. Polak was trying to escape with a heavily damaged spine. Sunak was not going down. His dreadnought was taking the full brunt of fire from 100 of our ships, and he wasn't even flinching as a sixth of our total fleet was firing concentrated barrages at him. I directed the captain to aim us at him and hit him as hard as we could. I was thrown out of my chair by the explosion. One of the enemy battleships had just used a broadside to hit us hard. "Starboard stabilizers out of action. Decks 5 through 8 report hull breaches. Damage control teams engaged," the ensign barked.
"Maintain fire. I know what's going on. Fight to the last man. Fight to the last, I say," the captain bellowed into the comms.
Good. He'd figured it out. A bit late, but he got it. I crawled back to my seat, and my heart sank from the casualty reports.
"We're losing ships too fast. We can't keep this up," I said.
"All ships unable to fight engage emergency jump procedures. That's an order," the captain barked. I looked at the dreadnought, and 180 of our ships, nearly half of our remaining fleet, was single-mindedly focused on it. I checked the transponders and noted 9 of my 10 intended targets were destroyed. It was enough. But I needed to be absolutely certain, and Sunak was the worst of them all. The casualty reports kept coming in, and we took another jolt of damage from a secondary impact. 3 of their cruisers had sent a volley on us. "Starboard side hit. Decks 28 to 61 report breaches. Major damage to engineering and cargo bay. Crew quarters reports lights out," the ensign said. "One more hit like that, and our reactor will fail," the captain yelled.
"Retaliate against the lead cruiser. They will."
My command was interrupted by a bolt from nowhere, hitting the side of Sunak's ship, and his shields failed. Seconds after the second bolt hit, a direct strike on the main reactor, and his warship instantly powered down and began to drift towards the planet's gravity well. Explosions from inside started appearing as parts of the ship's fuel caches exploded from what was likely internal short circuits. The ship then faltered and slipped below the formation before I watched the bridge explode from a fireball from inside. Sunak was dead. As we reeled from the occurrence, 3 more bolts from the void appeared, each one hitting the 3 cruisers that were targeting us. With that threat resolved, I hauled myself off the floor and yelled into the communicator.
"Mission accomplished. Full retreat. Full retreat."
I yelled desperately. "All power to FTL drive," the captain barked. We took a few more hits, luckily nowhere important, and were able to make an emergency jump towards our evacuation point. As soon as we were stable, I jumped out in my seat and checked casualty reports and helped with the ship's damage control teams. Our operation was a complete success, but the damage was severe. Better than expected, worse than I had hoped. Of the 600 ships I sent in, 112 were destroyed, lost or scuttled. 200 were damaged beyond repair and barely functional. The rest were heavily damaged, some with leaking jump drives and fracturing engines. It was a worthy sacrifice. Now, it was time for Phase 2 of my plan. "My Admiral, the Terran warships are on approach. Multiple non-Terran signatures detected as well. Looks like a Council Warden fleet is with them. A fleet of 200 battlecruisers and carrier-class warships incoming at speed," the ensign said.
"Let them come. Don't resist when they board us. Any ship with operable shields and weapons, stand down and obey their orders,"
I yelled back. "All ships, Phase 2. Repeat, Phase 2. Ensign barked into the comms. The fleet obeyed. I sat down in my seat, and the captain and I shared a knowing nod. A few minutes later, I had a Terran Marines and Council Praetorians on the bridge, my hands secured behind my back and the ship being towed to dry dock. I simply smiled at them and took a deep, nervous breath as Councillor Vahan wandered in with his marshals.
Admiral Feck, would you care to explain the act you just committed in violation of Article 7 of the Non-Aggression Act?
He said, his tall, imposing, silky form looking down at me. I simply shrugged and nodded towards a stack of documents nearby. He picked one up. It was the evidence file I had on Admiral Polak, who was killed in the fight. He opened it and read a few lines of the reports within. His expression changed from annoyed diplomat to enraged soldier. He read further, handing over the documentation to his Praetorians, and even the Terran soldiers nearby. Their expressions changed accordingly. Councillor Vahan tried to speak, but I shushed him up.
What happens now is this. You arrest me on charges of sedition. They will take me to trial. You use this as an excuse to expose all the evidence to the Galactic Council. Then the wheels of diplomacy will work overtime. The Council will keep the humans at bay while we do the work. Because we all know exactly what will happen if they get involved in this, especially with what Admiral Duhak was up to. We will be able to rebuild the honor of the Kavaki Empire without them placing world-classing warfare on the Terran Navy. We all know what would have happened. Now, let's go. I have a cell waiting for me,
I said, maintaining my smile. They all looked at me. An knowing expression crossed all their faces. One of the Terran Marines approached, glaring down at me from behind his black helmet.
I guess you were the ones responsible for the bolts that blew that destroyed Sunak's ship,
I asked. I got a not-so-subtle nod in response and maintained my smile.
Hell of a false flag up. Use the galaxy's biggest logistics network to effectively teleport yourself on a suicide mission straight into a fleet operated by some of the biggest legit criminals in the galaxy. Then take the fall for it. Then, while the galaxy at large is attempting to get you burned on the stake as a distraction, you release all the documentation that would send half the people you would vote to convict the gallows. Simultaneously, to get rid of the entire criminal empire and preventing the mass casualties of an entire species caught in the crossfire. Because you knew that we wouldn't forgive. Did I get that about right? He asked. Yep, sounds familiar. I stole the concept from your strategy playbook, after all, I said proudly, giving the Terran a wink with 2 of my 4 eyes. The Terran reached over and read Admiral Derek's file, and I could sense he was getting very agitated. You are correct. I would have classed a dozen worlds if it meant that we could kill this guy, among other things. My sentiments exactly. Now, Councillor Vahan, here, if you would be so kind, I said, holding up my restraints. Vahan took a deep breath, composing himself. Erase the dex logs from when we arrived on board. Use the damage to the ship as an excuse for data loss. Mimic it if you need to, he ordered the ensign. The ensign hastily pulled his pistol and put several laser blasts into the console controlling the security system. Whoops, looks like my pistol just shot. Sorry, it spooked me. I must be seeing shadows, he said. Councillor Vahan straightened up and cleared his throat. Admiral Feck of the Kataskani Imperium, you are under arrest under the charges of terrorism, sedition, and murder following the attack of Carriers 4. I am placing you under the jurisdiction of the Terran Federation to be brought to trial by the Galactic Council, he said. He waved his hand, and with practiced prowess, his Praetorians and Terran soldiers hauled me off the ship and into his flagship to the brig. The next months were a blur of activity. I was predictably stripped of my rank and station and put before council for judgment. As expected, the people I was watching did what I knew they would, and tried to vote conviction to back their own asses. Councillor Vahan then released the documents I found to the council. Enraged by the data, the Terrans breached protocol and hastily arrested half the council members. Disgusted by the evidence presented, the home nations denounced them in several cases, personally executed them in response. Within weeks, the Terran Navy was swarming Kabaki holdings, but were kept at bay by council fleets who forced them to sheathe their blades using my battle as evidence their intended target was already dead. Then, with the council's help, the Terrans switched from attack to relief mode as they quickly realized just how poorly the Kabaki Empire was faring under their previous rulers. With a unanimous vote, the council ordered the Kabaki Empire to undergo temporary vassalage under the Terran Federation until they returned to proper glory. 10 generations of corruption and abuse are undone. I was released to civilian life under forced retirement, and I chose to live on a Terran farmstead out on the rim.
It was then I learned that the council started to inquire exactly how I managed to pull off a stunt like that, and humanity shipping ships, and the moves I pulled off became a hot topic of conversation. But that's not my business anymore. I have chickens now. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.